month, we read Delta County by J.L. Hyde. And I picked this book. Jill, that's me. We do have a few trigger warnings for this book. It does talk about death, miscarriages, a terminal illness.
Murder.
So if those are murder, family members being murdered. So if those are triggering for you, we probably don't recommend that you read this book. So to start the discussion, we can talk about, did this story feel like a mystery or a thriller to you guys?
I think the beginning and the end felt thriller-esque, but the middle
like a Lifetime Hallmark movie,
like nothing. Yeah. I was kind of excited at the beginning when Kelly was like, I know who killed your parents, but I can't talk to you right now. And then she got murdered.
Yeah.
And then just like nothing happened.
And
for,
then
like,
she's
pages.
like, I'm so just determined to solve my friend's murder, to figure out like what's gonna happen or what happened with my parents. And then
she like picked up her life and moved back home.
Decided to become like a blogger and renovate her home. Like she literally in the book, she said that it was the best year of her life. Was the year after Kelly's murder. Like, that is what she said.
Yeah, I think though, like, if you think about it, like, Kelly hadn't been in her life for 10 years. So it's not like, even though she calls Kelly her best friend, it's not like there was a hole where, like, Kelly belonged. So I think even though she was grieving her and wanted to know what happened, there's not necessarily this like, oh man, I could have texted Kelly and told her about this funny thing. Like that wasn't stuff she was used to doing anyways. So I don't think it's necessarily wrong that she was able to like enjoy life immediately after Kelly died. So, but I did think like even when Mitch came to her house that night and was like, I know you think it's me, it wasn't me, and then they start meeting up. Even when they like meet up, it said, we basically just reviewed the same stuff we already knew.
And then they gave up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that the whole story was just kind of like weird. Like there were random tidbits of things that that were relevant at the last 5 pages of the book. But for the whole like slew of the story, it was just kind of like bleep, bleep, you know, like little kind of hints to something. And then it was like when you guys were talking about the book throughout the month or whatever, it literally is like 0 to 65. And then you slow down in a school zone. So now you have to go like 20. And then you like hit a stoplight, and then all of a sudden it's 100 miles an hour, and then it's the end of the book. It's so like it's very jarring the way the whole book is written. But I was like, I don't know. I agreed with your assessment that you made that the author kind of seemed like she was kind of wrapping up the book.
Yeah. I think if it wasn't a mystery thriller, I think I would have expected something different, because I do think it's interesting to see like all the little things that build up to her
psychotic break,
like murdering Mitzi. Yeah. But I wouldn't necessarily call it a thriller or a mystery.
Right. And it's little things like when her mother-in-law bought that rocking horse for the other woman. Yeah. That like at the time you're like, wow, you're pretty awful. But then you're like, when you find out this other woman had her grandchild, like, did she know in the moment that it was actually her grandchild? And like, she just kind of threw that into...
Right, but even if she knew that she was pregnant with her grandchild, that rocking horse was specifically special to what's her name?
Right. So like that's an even bigger slap
Yeah.
in the face, into Heather's face.
Yeah.
Right? Like the grandmother knew that this child is not only the love child of, you know, Heather's husband and Julie, like, but now she bought her this very special rocking chair that Heather has held near and dear because of her mother.
Yeah.
Like,
Her mom-in-law
Yeah.
was some
even
special kind of like demon person. Like, I
yeah,
can't even
it's
fathom
awful.
being treated that way, and just like, she was kind of snarky with her. So she did kind of snark with her back. But I'm still like, I don't understand why the dad stayed with her, like any of that. Like, once Kelly was murdered, like
Well,
there was
because
no reason
her
for him
mom
to
was,
stay, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's when it kind of started falling apart. Also, like when Kelly was murdered, they didn't know that Kelly was murdered by Mitzi.
Mm-hmm.
They
It had
didn't
been
immediately know
deemed an
that.
accident until the father-in-law, was like hanging out with the coroner, and the coroner was like, I got paid off.
No, somebody else was hanging out with him, and the coroner was drunk
Oh, okay.
and said that, and then somebody told the dad, the grandpa or whatever, the father-in-law,
But yeah, it
that
would still have been like a year later.
it had been a while. And so then he was like, I'm gonna figure this out because because he was also like, and in his head he knew that Mitzi had killed Heather's parents. So that's when he connected the fact that $100,000 had been taken out of their bank account around the same time. And so I think he was able to piece it together because he had all the information to begin with.
Yeah.
And then they found the picture of Mitzi being at the camp.
Like, yeah. Like, she was like in the
Terrifying.
woods in the background at the murder scene. I don't, she's just like a
Yeah.
crazy, she's like a psychotic person. Like,
Something I just thought about though is, well, okay. Something I just thought about is she she took the car, control of the car, and hit the other girls, expecting to kill them, right? Out of rage of finding out that Kelly was the love child of her husband and somebody else. And
Mm-hmm.
then I wonder, like, if Heather had gone over to the house and hadn't seen the baby there, because that's when she connected that this baby is also a love child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would she have gone over there and just talked, or was that rage of finding out that her husband has a love child what led her to like kill? Because then, in that way, they're
I
both
don't
kind
know,
of
because when
similar,
she was leaving the
Heather and
hospital, when
Mitzi.
Mitch and Kelly's mom were in the hospital and she was leaving, she was like, thank you. Like, she basically said goodbye.
Yeah, she was very calm. It was just like this, like, snap.
Yeah,
I think she'd already
I
snapped
think
and
that
was
it was the
ready.
straw that broke the camel's back, but I think that she was like prepared to kill
Mm-hmm.
Mitzi at that moment. And it was just, she could have died later or she could have died right then. And she made the choice. Mitzi made the choice to die right then.
How exactly? I thought she just punched her. How? What did I miss? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
she like
pretty sure she
launched
choked
herself
her.
at her, and then it cut to this whole book. This whole time was her talking to the prison therapist.
to like just like a
Oh
psychiatrist,
yeah,
like a court psychiatrist or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person's trying to evaluate whether it was like a moment of mental break or if
yeah.
it was like premeditated. I wasn't quite sure. Like, I didn't even know that she had actually died. I thought she had just punched her or something. Like, I mean, obviously I knew she did something to her, but I was like, oh man, she died. I don't really know how Heather actually killed her.
Ew.
So
I think she choked her.
Yeah, it says, okay, hold on. It's on page 318.
Okay,
It says, well, Vicky's the therapist. I knocked that smug smile directly off her face. She fell to the ground and I choked her until there was no life left in her miserable, murderous body. That's how I killed her.
Oh. There you go.
I
Question
think to be
answered.
able, like, I don't know this for certain, but I've watched a lot of Supernatural, okay? So I think to be able to, like, choke somebody, that takes, like, an incredible amount of, like, strength, for one, but also, like, it's a hard way to kill somebody. It's not, like, easy to kill somebody by choking them. Again, I know this from watching Supernatural, not from
personal experience.
But yeah. So, like, she had to have just, like, been full of adrenaline and just not thinking clearly. Also, though, her mother-in-law was a literal monster and took every opportunity to make her life miserable. So,
Yeah.
since she was, like, 7.
Even, like, when they invited her. Yeah. That's weird to me. Like, just as a kid, her mom's like, you're the worst.
Yeah.
The mom, not her mom. But I thought it was weird how, like, she came over for parties and was handed, like, a chore
And
list.
her husband was like, this is unacceptable, but he absolutely didn't do anything about it. Like, he was like, I can't believe my mom just hands you a chore list.
Like, even the night she had, even when she had the miscarriage, he didn't say, he didn't take it from her. He didn't say, like.
Well, he didn't even realize she was doing chores. She just, like, popped up and he was like, where have you been? And she's like, your mom gave me things to do.
Yeah, like, her mom is, like, this rich person who also hires help. But she gives her daughter-in-law a chore list to, like, restock the toilet paper in the bathrooms. And
Yeah.
she's terrible.
So
she's
weird.
terrible. Did Julie get a chore list? Julie probably didn't get a chore list.
Of course not.
No, she liked.
I liked the mom of what's his name? There's the ridiculous.
Oh, Mark.
Was that his name?
Or was Mark?
Oh no, Mark married Julie. Remember? So Mark.
Yeah.
So Mark's mom reminds me of, like, like a Golden Girl. So she was super sassy, and she even sassed back to Mitzi, which was fun, but Mitzi couldn't do anything about it. So I liked her. And then she totally was of the same, like, personality as Heather, and so they would just be snarky to each other and about other people. And I'm glad that she found a friend, but I feel like it was too little too late. Like, she was half gone. I feel like between, like, it all kind of piles up, and this is part of the question, I think, right? Where we're talking about, or one of the questions. Okay.
Just go.
So, like, first her parents die, right? Or in this car accident, and she thinks for the longest time that it was her best friend's mother who was drunk driving and killed her. And so she, for the longest time, hates her best friend. And then she finds out that it wasn't her best friend's mom. And then, or that it might not be. And then her best friend is murdered. And then, like, it's just, like, one thing after the other. And then her husband starts medical school. She's living on her own because he's in school or residency, and she's in this house. Then she's, like, started a business, which is stressful. And then they start trying to have babies. Oh no, then he moves back in with her. Then she keeps seeing him, like, interact with Julie, and she's like, what's up with that? And then they start having miscarriages, which is not only, like, emotionally taxing, but, like, physically, like, your body is like, what the heck is going on here? And then her mother-in-law is just all around just mean and terrible, and she has to deal with her on a daily. I just feel like it's just like boom, 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 psychotic break, water coming through the dam, somebody died.
Yep. That's the book. No one has to read it.
So, I don't know. It's just, I feel like Mitzi had it coming, to be honest. I feel like she got her just desserts.
I mean, I definitely don't blame Heather. I 100% can see how Heather got to that point. Like,
Yeah, because Heather didn't murder Julie.
we're literally,
She murdered Mitzi.
Yeah.
right?
Mitzi was also like she'd be mean and then all of a sudden she'd be nice. And then she'd go back to being mean. And she would like the rocking horse thing came from her being nice and then she decided to use that while she
Yeah,
was mean. Like,
yeah. I thought like when Heather had convinced him to go back, like move back to town and buy that house or whatever, and like they bought the house for them, Mitzi and
mhm.
her husband. When they bought the house, I thought that was going to be kind of like a turning point.
No, she was probably like, "Oh, he's going to be closer to Julie and then I can get him with Julie."
Yeah, probably their like regular Saturday lunches or whatever. Julie was probably telling her that they were secretly together and she knew all about it the whole
I'm just
time.
so mad at her
Mhm.
husband for like not standing up to his mother. Like I'm so
I
Yeah.
mean, he was also
well, yeah,
cheating
but
on
like
her, so we've already
that's
established
true.
that he's not a
But
good
he
guy.
seems like a good guy. You know what I mean? Like so until the very end of the book that you find out that he's actually a rotten scoundrel. Like so mad because totally inappropriate that she has regular lunches with an ex-girlfriend of his. Um, like
Mhm.
totally inappropriate that she gives his wife a chore list. Like she just does these like
Hmm.
wildly inappropriate things, and he's like, me.
Well,
Like,
yeah. Well, and like also, there were like a few times, didn't he have lunch with Julie himself one time because she needed a friend to talk to?
I think he would join Mitzi and Julie sometimes.
I know at one point that she was talking about how like why couldn't he just let go of this person? Like
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure. I wouldn't
I
doubt
thought
it.
they were meeting, but I I thought
I
they
don't
were
remember.
meeting by themselves at some point, and then she caught them in the picture leaning up against in the door frame the night that
Yeah.
Julie got engaged.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was, I think that was it. Was like that they looked really
They were
Cozy.
talking. Oh yeah, they were talking really close, and he
she had
said
questions.
that
Yeah.
she was stressed because she knew that he was going to propose and she wasn't sure, and
And
so she
Heather's
needed like
like,
a friend to
doesn't
talk
she
to.
have like friends who aren't married, who aren't ex-boyfriends?
Yeah, I did think the scene where they went
Uh-huh.
toilet papering was kind of funny.
That one guy
Like
comes like
she
tearing out
like
of the
her friend.
house.
Yeah, well, and like just the thought of like them having to remove all the car seats out of the minivan so that they could even like sit down.
They're like driving around town toilet papering people's houses in the minivan.
Yeah.
And then like they TP'd
And
that one
then
guy's house
they went
and
to
he
like,
comes out all mad and then he realizes who it is. And he's like, that was you this whole time? Because they had done it since high school. Like
they
a
had like a
second nickname because their
nickname.
first nickname was the Sharks because that makes them super cool. And the second nickname was something else. The Shark sounds like something out of like oh, isn't it though? From like West Side Story or something?
It
The
sounds
plastic.
like Mean Girl or something.
I feel
They're
like it's
called the
something from
plastic.
like West Side Story. What is it? What kind of gang is the Sharks?
Oh.
That might be West Side Story, but it felt very Mean Girl, and like they were the mean girls in high school, and like
But they also seemed like a lot of people liked them. So
yeah, like other people were excited for them to be reuniting,
It is
which
the
was
West Side
weird to
Story.
me.
they're like,
I
yay! We get to watch your guys' lives again from the
yeah,
outside. Like, Yay!
When I was reading about the reunion, I was like, I cannot relate to any of this. This is not how I was in high school. I would never go to a school reunion. I would never want to see all these people again. Like, cannot relate.
I mean, I wasn't like super popular, but I had a lot of friends in high school, and I still didn't go to my high school reunion.
I got added to the
So,
Facebook group.
for your 20th?
20th. You shut your mouth. The internet doesn't need to know it was
Is that next year?
This year.
Oh.
My 10 years in 2 years.
I'm coming up on 15.
So now everybody knows. But joke's on you because I was 17 when I graduated. So
I was 18.
We were going to talk about the nostalgia of returning to your hometown. I don't know if Kelly can quite relate to that. I don't know. You came back, I guess.
I didn't. I'm not.
She went to New Jersey.
Yeah, you left. You left and came back. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of a lot of when she was talking about just the nostalgia of driving through town and being like, oh, that's where I did this and that's where I did that. Like I was able to relate to that when Nate and I first came back home and we were like driving around and just kind of I still am in contact with some people that I went to high school with, even though I didn't go to the reunion. So there's kind of that nostalgia of like just returning home.
I think that I return home too often for it to be like, oh, I'm coming home. Like,
yeah.
I think I came home like 6 months after I moved away.
Yeah, I think you did.
So,
yeah. I think you come home like almost every 6 months.
Yeah, because I come home for Christmas and I come home during the summer. But like, honestly, I think I cringe a lot more versus having nostalgia.
Yeah.
I like see people and I'm like, ooh. or I have a memory and I'm like, ooh, that was rough.
I think though, I think we had different childhoods because I had a lot of friends and like I was always at some sort of like fun event. Mm-hmm. And so like when I graduated high school, this is really, really weird. When I graduated high school, I had multiple dreams where I was like pretending I didn't graduate and went back to school for like the social aspect of like being in school. Plus my best friend was a year behind me, so I wanted to be in school with her. But I like regularly was like, oh, if I just show up and tell them I don't have records, like they'll let me.
You're like a vampire.
Join high school again. And so I think like for me, like it was just a fun time, like of no responsibility or anything. So that's kind of what I think about like sometimes when I drive around, like, you know, I think of like the summers at the carnivals and stuff where we would just kind of run the streets and things. Like those are fun memories for me.
Well, like, so Richie and I, we took the kids to the carnival this was 2 weekends ago. And it was so weird because in years past, like we would walk around and we would see people that we recognized or like that we knew. And we saw maybe 2 people. And I knew they were going to be there because I saw, it was my friend Marissa. And so I saw her there with her husband. And then I saw her at the park earlier that day. And so, she was at the lake. She was at the lake. And so, but we moved here when I was 15, and then I moved away when I was 25. So I lived here for 10 years, and then we were gone for 5 years, and then we moved back. But I don't know. I still have okay, let me gather my thoughts here. I remember coming back, and it was kind of one of those cliche things where you're like, oh, you can never go home again, because it was not the same. It wasn't the same. All of any of my friends that I had before were not here anymore. I had my work friends, but it was like, I don't know. And then, but I do sometimes have the like this weird thing when I'm driving around, and because when I drive my kids to school, I had to drive past my old high school. And so it's kind of weird because I'm like, I've literally been driving these streets for 20 years. Like, I've been driving these same streets up to Walmart, down to the lake. Like, it's so weird to think about, especially growing up in the military the way that we did. Like, it's so weird to think that I am driving the same roads over and over and over for 20 years. It's bizarre. So, and that when my son starts to drive, that he's going to be driving the same roads that I drove when I was his age. Like, it's so weird. So weird to think. But, so I wouldn't call that nostalgia, though. I would just call it weird. Good. It's the word of the day. I have word of the day toilet paper. Wasn't that something on Friends? I feel like that was something that Joey had. Joey on Friends had word of the day toilet paper, so he would like use these really big words randomly. Yeah, I think it was toilet paper. We have to Google it.
I am Googling it.
Okay, so while Jill's Googling that, what's the next question?
I didn't even finish it. I said word of the day, toilet paper.
See, there you go. I might not have a very good memory, but I do remember the weirdest things. See, there's my word of the day. Weird.
Chandler gave it to him.
I don't think I've watched Friends enough to remember anything.
Okay, you guys have homework, okay? Both of you need to watch I Love Lucy, okay, in its entirety, and Friends, okay?
I've watched all of Friends.
All of Friends.
You're missing out on the I Love Lucy. I sit there with my kids. My kids and I sit there and watch it. Time. And they're like hysterically laughing. Okay. Lucy is the best. It's the best.
I'm so glad that your kids are loving the show. I don't have time to
like
watch all of I Love Lucy.
There's like 11 seasons, but they're like 20-minute shows. Oh my gosh.
I've got too many books to read.
Put a book down and watch the boob tube for a minute.
Oh, thank you.
Heather has a tendency to avoid grieving her trauma. How does this affect her? Of her avoiding it specifically?
Oh, I don't know.
We talked about like the small things building up, and that's what broke her. And then she like broke.
So like because she did it both times. So her parents died the night of her graduation. She just goes off to college and
just like tried to forget that it was a thing. Just tried to move on.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember. Was it like instantly that she started drinking?
She was like, like she was partying and...
I know. Oh, wasn't it after the whole situation where what's his name had told the whole campus that she had slept with him?
Well, I think she like leaned in more to the like party girl. Yeah, the
after
like
that,
easy girl type of...
She was like, if everybody already believes it.
The whole...
Yeah, but I think she was still like partying and stuff before that.
Okay. Because she talks about how the first 3 years of college, she pretty much threw away because she was partying. She didn't care very much. And it wasn't until she reconnected with Ryan. Ryan was her husband. I couldn't remember his name for a long time. It wasn't until she reconnected with Ryan in her junior year that he was able to help her kind of get out of that, and then she kind of pulled things together the last year and was able to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was how she avoided the death of her parents.
Yeah. And then
And
with Kelly, she threw herself into like remodeling a home
right,
and just avoiding
even
all of
though she
that.
moved back to investigate the murder, she didn't
Yeah.
do it very much.
Yeah. Even after the one miscarriage that she does talk about, like that you hear about, she was just like, I'm gonna suck it up. I'm gonna eat some hoagies and I'm gonna go to this party and we're gonna
Yeah,
move on.
I
Like,
can't imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I cannot even. So, like, I had 3 miscarriages, and I think that like each each time is different. Like the first time, it's kind of like it sucks, but it's like a fluke, like the doctors say the same thing every time. They're always like, 1 in 4 pregnancies miscarried. You're like, okay, so there's hope. So then you're like, okay, well, let's try again. And then you try again and it miscarries. And you're like, okay, well, what now? And then the doctors are like, there's hope. So, like, by the third time, which I'm pretty sure this was her third one, like, by the
Yeah,
third
I think so.
time, I was wrecked. And I was like, and granted, I am not apparently as like steel force feelings captor as Heather is, but like I was like, we're not having any more kids. It's like it was like this roller coaster of emotions. At first, I was really angry, and it probably happened within hours. Hours after like finding out I had a miscarriage, it was like I was sad, I was angry, I was like stoic, and then I was like, okay, maybe we could try again. Like it was like whack. So I can't imagine like just being like, let me put my big girl pants on and go to this party and do chores for my mother-in-law, and like I can't imagine, but she has like a steel trap for her
And
emotions.
I
So
kind of thought,
well,
yeah,
apparently she doesn't because
she's got the Hoover Dam. It just exploded.
she just kind of she pushed those down real deep, and it was built up too much. Um, when I was reading it initially, I thought like because she had found out kind of like that afternoon that maybe she was like, we're already expected to be there like for a few hours. I can put on a face and pretend, and when we get home,
Like
like
she didn't even
I'll
tell her
break
husband,
down.
right? Like
But I feel like no, she did. He
I
came
think she said
home
it like
and
sarcastically, like in
she said
passing.
something.
She was like, "Oh, because he saw her drinking." Yeah,
oh, she was about to have a drink. Yeah, she was gonna
Yeah,
drink, and he was
yeah.
like,
She's like, "Don't have to worry about that." Like,
yeah,
I can't even. It did feel very realistic to me,
yeah,
but that wasn't my
yeah.
experience.
I thought maybe because wasn't that the same night that she
Yeah,
met Mark's mom? That was the night that
yeah,
Julie got engaged,
yeah.
like
And
all
then her
those
mother
things.
tried to make her
And
look
then she
bad
ended
by
up,
telling Mark's mom that, "Oh, she doesn't like your son." And yeah, she's like,
and
oh
she's
"No,
like,
yeah,
me
he's
too.
the
I
worst,
don't like him
actually."
either.
um, but was that the same night she went home by herself? Because then she saw the picture of
Yeah,
him
she
and
like
Julie
walked
and all that
home, and
good
then
stuff.
Mitch showed up, and
Man,
I know
what a
it.
rough night.
Yeah,
It's all
I'm telling you, I'm surprised she didn't crack earlier. I'm surprised it took her that long.
I think for a minute there, she wasn't seeing Mitzi a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
I think she only ever
yeah,
saw
because
him when, or
something was
saw
going
Mitzi
on,
when
and
Ryan came to town. When he like would come up for the weekend.
yeah, but at that
yeah.
point when they were trying for babies, he had been
Yeah,
working. He had
yeah,
graduated or completed his residency. He had been more.
And not only was she like dealing with the miscarriages, but they weren't telling Ryan's parents that they were trying for a baby, so she was constantly hearing Mitzi like, if only we had grandchildren. Like,
Right. Right.
you have an extra room in your
Yeah,
house.
could
It
you
could be a
imagine though if
nursery,
Mitzi had
but
known? I feel like she would have used that against her too, like that you're not capable of this and you're failing my son
Yeah.
and all of this stuff. I can't imagine had she known that it would have been any better. So I'm telling you, she's just a rotten person. Like, how does somebody get so mean? I don't even understand. I don't even understand how somebody gets so mean.
Yeah, and you can't even blame it on like the whole, Mitzi lost control and went and tried to kill Kelly and ended up killing her parents, and now like she's this
Yeah,
reminder
you
of
would think that
this
she'd be
awful night,
so
right?
nice to Heather. She killed her parents.
Right, but well, I was thinking more like if that had like traumatized her, or like the guilt of it, like reminding her all the time, made her into an awful person. But she was like that, but
Before.
when
Yeah.
Heather's parents were still alive.
because she invited Heather's mom to like a party and like basically scammed her into spending like $500
Yeah.
on an ugly necklace.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Just to try to, because she made Heather's mom feel like she had to keep up with everybody else in town. It sounded like kind of like an
Yeah, like
MLM thing. Like
yeah,
whatever jewelry
yeah. Like
thing, like,
Avon or something, only
yeah.
jewelry.
yeah.
Very, very expensive jewelry.
Yeah, that she like set up on tables in her living room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's no good.
So,
She's no good. Well, and I always thought, oh, I didn't always. I always thought, it's been like a week since I finished the book. I thought it was kind of abrupt, though, that all of a sudden Ryan's dad had been having this relationship with Kelly's mom. Like, I feel like that was kind of out of left field. It wasn't even mentioned. It wasn't hinted at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was like out of left field.
well, it did mention that once he left Mitzi, moved in with Ryan and Heather. Then after that,
Mm-hmm.
he moved into the cabin, and they went and visited him, and they were like, "Oh, this cabin looks like it's been decorated with a woman's touch." So they did mention that he was in like some sort of relationship. And then they, at the very beginning of the book, they do talk about how Kelly and Ryan were often mistaken as siblings because they look
Oh.
so similar to each other. So there were some little clues in there, but yeah, that was a. And then like the fact that he cared so much about the case and about Kelly and all that stuff too,
Yeah, I didn't
kind of,
pick up on any of that. All
I
of that
think,
went
foreshadowed a
straight
little.
over my head.
I
I was
mean,
gonna say, I
I
feel like
didn't pick
there
up on
were,
it.
I feel like there were like little hints for like what was going on, but when you're reading it, you're just kind of like,
Yeah,
just keep going, just get through it, just get. And then once
right.
you're at the end and you hear everything, then you're like, oh, okay. So I wish there had been like, I wish you had made it more like Heather was putting the pieces together versus like,
Let me just dump the answers on you. I thought it was funny how she's like trying to like gather information, and then suddenly there's somebody just, I mean, Kelly's mom just comes to her and is like, "I know everything. I have
yeah,
the whole story." And then it just wraps up like within
Yeah.
like
Well,
seven
how does this
pages.
terminally ill
it
patient
was,
like know everything? She has the right pictures. She has the right, like, she's just got all the information. She's just sitting here holding a gold mine, and everybody else is scrambling around her trying to figure out what's going on. And she's like, and
Yeah.
then she doesn't even want to share until she's on her deathbed.
I mean, they explain why, but
Yeah, still stupid. I don't like it.
we just wanted to spend this time together. Like, really? if I was dying, I think I would want to see the my daughter's murderer being brought to
Right.
justice.
Not even
Yeah.
just like my daughter, but like my
Like not
friends.
only
Like she murdered her friends. She murdered her daughter.
and then and then framed her.
Yeah.
So Mitzi murdered her friend. Then Mitzi framed the mom for the last 10, 12 years. Then Mitzi killed her daughter. And this woman's just like, well, I just want to die spending time with the man I love.
When like all she has to do is hand over this evidence.
Yeah,
Like,
it wouldn't even be a long trial. Then you could have publicly hung out with the man that you love.
Yeah.
Like, not in your nursing care home for the last
I can't
little
even
bit of your
remember
life.
what Mitzi had like
Yeah.
over their head. Like what was she?
So Mitzi, because they met because Kelly's mom was working for the father-in-law in his law firm, and so Mitzi was gonna say that was gonna like get him like was gonna get him in trouble because he was a lawyer,
Yeah.
right? So Mitzi was gonna get him in trouble
Oh,
with the
because she was a
bar.
paralegal or
Mitzi was
something.
going, because they were having an inappropriate relationship basically in the workplace. Um, she there were other things, but yeah, she was basically gonna go after his career was one of the big ones.
mhm.
Um, so, but like, I don't know. Could she really do that after she was like, her credibility would have been shot if she was proven guilty of manslaughter.
Yeah, like, yes, I had a child with this woman, but you
Yeah.
murdered two people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I feel like they underestimated Mitzi.
If they, it,
Overestimated
that's,
her
Overestimated her.
ability to be kind and normal.
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely don't think Kelly's mom
No.
took the right deal accepting
No.
a murder
And I
charge.
also feel like Ryan's dad is a terrible lawyer. If that is the deal, that he was like, yes, this sounds good. Let's go with this. I would not want him representing me. Just saying. So
Yeah.
even if he lost his career, like like you said, she murdered somebody. Two people. Two people.
Two people.
So and
And
then
then
three
three
people.
people.
Had she been locked away the first time, this whole thing could have been avoided.
Yeah.
She would have saved her own life.
I am curious because the books so there's this one, Delta County, and then there's another one that is not a sequel or like related to the story other than the fact that they like geographically take place in the same spot. And then there's the third one, which is I think like Midnight in Delta, and that's supposed to kind of answer some more questions. So I am curious just because she was also Heather was
Yeah.
pregnant when she was in jail. She had a big old pregnant belly. So I'm curious like if that book explains more of like what happened to her criminal case and what happened to her baby. And it's obviously Ryan's baby. So
Mm-hmm.
does Ryan even want anything to do with
Yeah, like
her?
after she murdered his mother.
Does Ryan know about it? Right. Like Ryan's obviously been living this other life that his mom wanted him to be living.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes and like kills her mom. His dad wants not what I'm sure his dad doesn't have much to do with them anymore. Like I I'd be curious if the book answered that too. Like
Is it
I
already
don't know.
out or is it coming out?
Yeah,
Are you
no,
gonna
it's
read
out
it, Jill?
already. I don't know. I barely read these books every month.
If you were the therapist, would you deem Heather that she had a mental break?
Oh, I think
Yes.
it's absolutely was like a psychotic break and not so much
Didn't
like a premeditated thing.
didn't the therapist be like, well, I don't know
She
if I can
said,
really say that you
hold on, I
were
was just reading it. She says
clinically
whether or not you
insane?
were in such a state may be a little difficult to prove at trial. But that's like her whole purpose in even having this interview is to gather all of the information and to
Right.
make that decision as like the professional witness.
Right. She's the expert witness of like whether or not it was a temporary insanity
So, I
situation.
mean, whether or not the jury was like, yeah,
I would say it was.
I think And I think honestly, like, I think seeing the child there in that moment really, I think she was mad and she was going there to confront her and maybe like tussle a little bit. But I think that seeing the baby, because it was specifically like the baby smiled and that dimple, and then she like lunges. And
well,
I
no,
think
Mitzi
truly
laughed at
like
her. So
seeing
she
that
noticed
child,
that Mitzi noticed that Heather put the pieces together and then she laughed
notices
at
and
her
yeah,
like a devil woman
Yeah.
yeah.
and then she died.
I really don't think if Julie and the baby hadn't been there, I think it could have ended differently.
Yeah.
I really think it was the baby, seeing the baby and
That
putting
like
the pieces together,
broke her.
that's what made her snap.
So that's it. That's all
Makes
she
sense to
wrote.
me.
So what would you guys rate this book?
I would rate the beginning and the end like 4, and I would rate the middle like 2. So
A two?
like a 3.
Not a two, just a bad book.
I
No.
did feel like it was just boring.
Right.
Like,
Don't regret reading the book, but would read it again as a three. Or wouldn't read it again
yeah.
as a three.
So I think overall the entire book would be a 3 for me.
Hmm.
Mm,
What do you
I'm
think,
looking
Kelly?
at the list here.
I just feel like the beginning of the book I was excited and the end of the book I was like shocked, but the middle of the book I kept like I would like look at Christopher and be like, I'm trying to get through this.
I feel like through the middle of the book, what pulled me through was I knew it had to wrap up and I wanted to know. I wanted the information, but I was like, when are we gonna
Oh,
get there?
okay. So I like to know how many chapters are in a book
Oh yeah, what did you
while I'm reading it. So I flipped back to go see how many chapters there were, and I was like halfway through the book. I saw I killed Mitzi Matthews, and I was like, okay, that's where we're trying to get.
You're like, Missy dies. That's good. I would say it's easy to read. I don't think that I had a hard time getting through it. The chapters were fairly short, and so it made you feel like you were reading really fast because the chapters were short. Yeah.
You're like blowing through chapters?
But so I don't think it was a hard read to get through, and it wasn't a terrible book, but I probably would rate it a 3 just because I won't be reading this again. But to be fair, there's very few books that I would read more than once.
There's very few books I ever read again.
There's also very few books where I'm like, read this.
When Miranda texted us and was like, it goes 0 to 100, I like I was like, okay, at some point, like I'm just gonna keep reading because at some point it's gonna like
the last
pick up.
pages.
And then I'm literally at like I'm like at chapter 40 and 41, and I'm like, there's only 44. Like, when are we gonna answer these questions?
It picks up in chapter 43.
So, yeah. I think I would rate it a 3.5. I think it was a nice, simple book. I think like the story, like overall, was cute. I liked the story. Like the middle section alone was like a nice story. I wouldn't say it's like a mystery.
Like minus the murder and the death. Like her life is very similar to mine.
I think
Minus the murder, the death, and the psychotic mother-in-law, like minus those things, I feel like I can relate to Heather.
I think that I would have a different rating for the book if it was advertised to me differently. Also, I went into this book thinking it was going to be like about the high schoolers and like their reunion and maybe like
Like
when they were
all
in high
of them
school.
together solving
Right,
this
like
mystery.
something
Yeah.
cryptic like
Because
went
that's how it was
down in high
advertised.
school, and they were all there for it, and now like a Scooby-Doo
Yeah.
moment or something, you know, like it was not
Yeah.
that.
But like the reunion was like just the first like 5 chapters of the book, and then you never like
Yeah.
even
Right,
addressed
the
that
whole
again.
purpose of the reunion
Yeah.
was just to bring Kelly
And
back.
she didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she didn't even tell, Heather didn't tell her other friends, like Rebecca or who are the other girls? I don't know. She didn't tell any of them that.
Sam?
I don't know.
I was trying to think of sharks.
Yeah, I know. Heather. It was like Heather. And was it Annabelle? I don't know. I
Yeah,
know
I don't
there's a
remember.
Rebecca in there.
Yeah.
But she didn't tell them that she was even like trying to figure out, or that she even suspected Kelly's murder to be something else.
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Why didn't you tell us? Like we could have been helping or whatever."
Yeah.
So the reunion was really just to like emphasize like how much of an impact it was having, because it was like 10 years. Like 10 years is a significant number. So it's been 10 years since her parents died. It's been 10 years since she's like been with these people again, because the last time she
Mm-hmm.
was with them was the night her parents died. So there were like some of those like triggering things for her, but other than that, like the
Yeah.
reunion didn't play. Because like it was, the back of the book is like she goes home to the reunion and something horrible had happened the night of their graduation, and I thought it involved
Yeah.
kind of more people.
It literally says Heather must push her grief aside and investigate the events that occurred the night of the reunion. So, like, I felt like it was going to be about being in high school.
Or
and,
like similar to like Girls Weekend, where it was like a
Yeah.
locked room murder
Yeah.
or something. Yeah. But I
That is
don't
not
know.
what it turned out to be.
I think the middle section was like a nice, cute book. The beginning and the end tied together to make like a nice mystery, a nice
Yeah.
little. I wouldn't call it a thriller or anything. It was just kind of like a thinker.
I don't even know what genre that would be. I would like suspense, but not, it wasn't even that suspenseful. Like,
No, it wasn't. It's
is
not like
there
she
like
had to
a
like.
cozy psychological thriller?
It's not even psychological. It's like a thinker, a cozy little
So,
thinker. It's just a cozy little thinker.
at the end, you're like, I understand why she murdered this person.
Yeah, or like, I mean, I was able to sit at the end and be like, oh, I understand why she mentioned that Kelly and Ryan look like siblings, and I understand why she mentioned the cabin being decorated by a woman, and I understand
Mhm.
like sometimes the father-in-law, she said, would just be gone until like late into the evening, and then he would come back home, like, and they didn't know where he was at ever. Like, okay,
Yeah.
now I can, that all makes sense, and you can like think about it and be like, cool.
See,
That all
I
makes
think
sense
I wasn't
now.
enough into the book
Yeah.
that I would want to sit and think about those things. Like the book was not so intriguing
I
to
did.
me that I'm like, ooh, yeah. Ooh, that part that I had a question about, that makes sense now. Like, no. I was just like, wow. That got aggressive really fast.
You got a little bit of whiplash
like,
reading
what?
it. I am kind of intrigued. Maybe one day I'll be able to read more books than more a month. And
Oh, we deciphered today that Jill only ever finishes the books that she chooses.
that's not true. Just recently. That's not. Because I finished Where the Crawdads Sing, and I didn't read that one. I didn't pick that one. I finished.
True.
Did I finish I didn't finish Practical Magic.
No, we had to
Same with
explain
the
that
Night
one to you.
Circus.
Did I?
Did
No,
you
I didn't.
finish Red Queen?
I did finish Red Queen.
But she didn't finish the last two books. Last two books, The Whispering Door and Bridget Jones. She didn't finish those.
I definitely don't finish the books Kelly picked.
I'm gonna make you guys read one of my romance books. You're gonna have to read them.
Also,
I don't think I'll have a problem with that.
Kelly has picked books where she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love this movie."
Just the one book. Miranda picked
Practical
Magic.
I picked Practical Magic.
Oh.
And then Kelly, maybe it's a curse that when Kelly says, "Oh, I love this movie," it's going to be a bad book.
The movie was good.
To be fair, though, Bridget Jones was a lot easier to listen to audiobook than it was to read it.
I had to buy the Kindle book to be able to follow along with the audiobook.
Yeah.
You were reading it while you listened to it?
Yeah, like I had to see the words.
Oh. I don't know. I found it easier to just like listen to it because it felt more conversational and then you don't have to sit there listening to her like write the mundane like moments of her getting ready for work that day. Like you don't have to read that.
Yeah.
Because if I was reading it, I probably would have just skipped over it. So like sometimes when I read a book, I'm super interested in what's happening to the hero and like how their story is developing. And then sometimes the chapter will skip to like the villain side or something. And they're like scheming and conniving, and I'll just like skip that whole chapter and I'll go to the next one where the hero's back and I'm like, yeah, I'll just catch up with that later. I feel like it'll all wrap up.
I am too anxious to do that. I'd be like, what if I missed some kind of information?
I'm just like,
I couldn't do
not
that.
interested. Let's get to the stuff that I actually want to read. Because that is not it. So, but sometimes I do read the back of the book. If I'm like, oh, is somebody going to live or die? I'll like skim the back of the book.
Oh, I'll always read the last like little blurb on the very last page. Christopher yells
I do
at
with
me
TV shows too. If I'm like invested in a character, I'll like scroll through the TV, the episodes to see if that person is in later episodes. It helps me. I did it with Pretty Little Liars when I was like, oh, is this person gonna die? Or I'm like, oh, is Allison really like alive and torturing these girls? So I had to like skim forward and be like, oh yeah, she's alive.
If you Google a character, it'll tell you like when they were like what episodes they're in, and so then you can be like, oh, they're only in like 5 of these 20 episodes. Okay.
No, I just use my clicker.
No, they're funny. I just watch it.
No, I gotta know. Or like when the series,
stressful.
so like I was watching Riverdale and Jughead like dies, and I'm like, wait, but Jughead can't die. Like he can't be dead forever, dead. So, but there was no episodes later on, and so I made Richie go on the internet. I was like, I have to know. I can't go on like with my day if I don't know. And then I knew, and I could go to bed, and it was fine.
Alrighty, so next month, Miranda's picking.
Next month, we're reading a book called Really Good Actually.
Really Good
Actually. By Really Good Actually, and then it has a picture of a crying woman on it. It's by Monica Heisey? Hasey?
Sure. I would say Hasey.
Mm-hmm.
Hasey.
Sure. Heisey. Okay. The inside says, Maggie is fine. She's doing really good, actually. Sure, she's broke. Her graduate thesis on something obscure is going nowhere, and her marriage only lasted 608 days. But at the ripe old age of 29, Maggie is determined to embrace her new life as a surprisingly young divorcee. Now she has time to take up 9 hobbies, eat hamburgers at 4 a.m., and get back out there sex-wise. With the support of her tough, loving academic advisor, Maris, her newly divorced friend Amy, and her group chat, Naturally, Maggie barrels through her first year of single life, intermittently dating, occasionally waking up on the floor, and asking herself tough questions along the way. And then, like, a review. It's supposed to be funny. It seemed like a lighter book to read since August is Wedding Palooza. Craziness.
I like that we're all like, using that term now.
Let's... So, I'm hoping it's funny and like just a light.
By the way, that was not on the list of possible books that you sent us.
No, I was thinking about like a wedding themed book, but then I just went through like an entire romance series, and I was kind of ready to not be reading romance.
Well, it kind of seems like we are reading romance. It's like a Sex in the City kind of romance, though. Less of like...
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. So I had it on my on Audible for a while, so I was like, well, I can listen to it if I need to.
You can listen to it on the airplane.
So that's true. I will probably be asleep, but yes.
Lucky you. I don't sleep on airplanes.
Alrighty.
June, we did that giveaway, and some people shared some reviews, and I just wanted to share those real quick. 5 stars again, because we're awesome. They said, great book club for people not in a book club. A book club podcast is the perfect name for this podcast. Although I don't have much time / have not made the effort to join a real book club, listening to this podcast, especially the episodes on the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, really scratched the itch of joining a real book club. Although as a listener, I was still able to engage with my thoughts based on the posed questions and absorb different perspectives over one of my favorite books. If you are not in a book club, this is a fantastic substitute for one.
I love this because the whole point of me wanting to do this was to like provide something for people who weren't able to fit into their schedule, because that's why I haven't joined like an in-person book club for a long time, is I just trying to fit that into my schedule has always felt impossible. So I'm glad that other people are feeling that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share those and encourage people to leave reviews, and we'll share them if you leave a review.
Anonymously, we won't say your name.
That's it. Find us on social media.
TikTok and Facebook and Instagram.
Like, share, subscribe.
All the things.
Okay, bye.
We're so good at this.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and then follow us on whatever social media platform you use the most. The link for next month's book is going to be down in the description below, so grab your copy and then make sure to share all your thoughts with us.